Wei Yuli is the most handsome man in the world. Because he offended the Grand Princess, his hand and foot tendons were severed, and he was thrown into a beggar's den. In my past life, I saved his life and healed his tendons. Yet he gouged out my eyes and gave them to the Grand Princess who had an eye disease. After the Grand Princess regained her sight, she fell in love with him at first glance. But I had my limbs chopped off, imprisoned in the stables, never seeing daylight for the rest of my life. Reborn into this life, I looked at the dying Wei Yuli and tenderly stroked his handsome face. Then, with a swift stroke of my blade, I peeled off his face and threw it to the disfigured little beggar nearby. "Hey, want me to give you the most beautiful face in the world?" With his entire face peeled off, Wei Yuli let out terrified screams. Finding him too noisy, I stuffed a stinky sock into his mouth, then asked the little beggar again, "I am asking you, do you want the face or not?" The little beggar looked up, staring at me blankly. His voice was hoarse and unpleasant. "Do you know who I am?" Of course I knew. His name was Shen Yi, the most skilled shadow guard by the Grand Princess's side. But because he made a mistake, the Grand Princess disfigured him, forced him to drink heartbreak powder, and threw him into the beggar's den. Within 3 days, he would die a violent death. Today was the last day, but as it happened, I knew how to cure this poison. I stuffed a pill into Shen Yi's mouth. Who you were before doesn't matter. From now on, you are Wei Yuli. The art of face swapping has always only existed in legends. What a coincidence, yours truly is that legend. After swapping Wei Yuli's face onto Shen Yi, I satisfyingly stroked that stunningly beautiful face. Not bad, not bad. Shen Yi hadn't seen sunlight for years. His skin was fair and pale, actually fitting this face better than Wei Yuli ever did. Shen Yi stared at himself in the bronze mirror, lost in a daze. He gained the most beautiful face in the world, but also lost his freedom for life. The price of saving him was to stay by my side forever. Who told me to be a natural looks, obsessed simp who just loves beauties? I kicked Wei Yuli, who was lying in the corner like a dead dog. "Hey, wake up. Time to empty the chamber pot." Wei Yuli glared at me fiercely, his eyes terrifyingly red. Looking at his mangled, bloody face, I closed my eyes, utterly disgusted. "Didn't I tell you to put on the veil? Get away. Your ugliness is hurting my eyes." With that, I gave him another hard kick. I kicked Wei Yuli's leg bone clean in half, but he dared to be angry yet dared not speak. Could only obediently put on the veil and drag his broken leg to empty the chamber pot. These past days, I've been toying with Wei Yuli like a dog. After I reconnected his tendons, I severed them again one by one. After severing them, I'd heal them, then sever them again, over and over, until Wei Yuli wished he were dead. It is not like he hadn't thought of seeking death. But how could I let him die? He still wanted to watch his Grand Princess go to hell with his own eyes. Wei Yuli left and never came back. But I acted as if nothing had happened and fell asleep peacefully. In my dream, I returned to that sunless stable. In the dark, damp stable, layers of horse manure piled on the ground, giving off a foul smell. My limbs had been broken, hanging limply on the ground. A bowl of thin porridge was placed before me. I licked my parched lips and desperately tried to move my body, wanting to drink that bowl of porridge. Suddenly, the porridge bowl was crushed under someone's foot. Wei Yuli, wearing boots studded with rubies, stomped the thin porridge into the mud and smiled. "Simonin, take her away." Her Highness was scalded. Peel off the skin from her chest and graft it onto Her Highness. I wanted to scream in terror, but couldn't make a single sound. Me tongue had long been cut out by them. I was born with jade, like skin, carrying a medicinal fragrance, and my body was extraordinarily resilient. After the Grand Princess replaced her eyes with mine, her health became far better than before. So Wei Liuli suggested keeping me captive, turning me into the Grand Princess's plaything. Wherever the Grand Princess was injured, that part of my body would be used to replace it. To maintain the best healing effect, they never gave me anesthetic. I was pinned to the ground, stripped of all my clothes. The elderly doctor rolled up his sleeves, his gaze lingering on my chest. Then, he raised the dagger high. The sharp dagger plunged viciously toward my chest. The extreme pain made me cry out involuntarily. Aha! I clutched my chest, gasping heavily for air. Yet there wasn't a trace of blood on my chest. It was a dream. All a dream from my past life. Shen Yi rushed in, patting my back soothingly. I leaned against his shoulder, my voice weak and feeble. Shen Yi, promise me. Never betray me, okay? A thin silver needle silently pierced into his neck. Soon a thread of black lurked beneath the skin of his neck. Shen Yi's body stiffened for a moment. Then he embraced me back. He spoke softly. Xinghua, I won't betray you. Never. I smiled. He'd better keep his word, otherwise. Wei Liuli came back the next day, strutting arrogantly. He brought a group of servants and had us tied up tightly, then dragged to the princess's residence. Princess, it was this wicked woman who swapped my face with that of a filthy beggar. Please, princess, do justice for Liuli. Wei Liuli knelt on the ground, his face full of flattery. If it were his handsome face from before, any expression would have seemed attractive. But now his face was covered with crisscrossing scars, looking especially horrifying. Quite a few maids and old servants turned their heads away in disgust. Only the Grand Princess appeared unaffected. She was blind, so naturally she couldn't see the truth. I seized the opportunity to speak. Nonsense, with such an ugly appearance. How could you be the #1 beauty, Wei Liuli? Wei Liuli stomped his feet in anger. You lying, despicable wretch. If you hadn't altered my face, how would I have become so hideous? Too bad. You swapped my face, but you couldn't swap my voice. Your Highness, if you don't believe me, just have that little beggar say something. Everyone's gaze fell on Shen Yi. The Grand Princess couldn't see, and could only rely on voices to distinguish people. Shen Yi looked somewhat nervous, and Wei Liuli smiled smugly. But the next moment, he couldn't smile anymore. Wei Liuli crawled to the Grand Princess's feet and called out tearfully, Your Highness, this servant knows her wrongs. That voice, soft and seductive, even more delicate than Wei Liuli's voice. The Grand Princess grabbed Shen Yi's hand, stroking it lovingly, again and again. All right, it is good that you know your wrongs. These past few days, this princess has also calmed down. The two reconciled as before, making everyone envious. Wei Liuli stomped his feet anxiously, but was ordered by the Grand Princess to be dragged away and beaten to death. Beaten to death? How could he get off so easily? I immediately kowtowed. Your Highness, this servant is a medical woman, and can cure your Highness's eye condition. This little beggar has bright eyes and exceptional vision, the perfect candidate for an eye transplant. Upon hearing this, the Grand Princess instantly stood up in excitement. Is this true? I prostrated myself and kowtowed, pledging my head as guarantee. Wei Liuli's face turned deathly pale in an instant. You bitch. You've already stripped the skin off my face, and now you want to gouge out my eyes. I'll kill you. He kicked up a fuss, but was gagged and thrown into the stable in disgrace. Meanwhile, I became an honored guest at the Grand Princess's residence. The matter of transplanting eyes was no small affair. To prevent me from harming the Grand Princess, I was fed the gut, severing powder. Without the antidote, my intestines would rupture, and I would die within 3 days. Everyone thought that since I valued my life, I definitely wouldn't dare do anything to the Grand Princess. I smiled. Wei Liuli was tied up tightly, with a wooden gag stuffed in his mouth. He widened his eyes, desperately trying to struggle. But like fish on a chopping board, he was at my mercy. I gently traced a line over his eye. Shh, don't move otherwise. With that said, I stabbed viciously into his eye. Wei Liuli fainted from sheer terror. Looking at the Grand Princess sleeping beside me, I waved the dagger in my hand and hummed a little tune. In just the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the eye transplant was complete. Wei Liuli's eyeballs were gouged out by me while he was still alive and transplanted into the Grand Princess. The Grand Princess touched the bandages over her eyes, somewhat in disbelief. 7 days from now, I will be able to see the light again. Is that right? I nodded solemnly. The Grand Princess smiled. I smiled too. I was looking forward to what the Grand Princess would see 7 days later. During the Grand Princess's recovery, I was confined to the manor, forbidden from going out. Wei Liuli was locked in the stables, crying and shouting every day that he was the Grand Princess's true love. I passed by him and slowly walked toward the deepest courtyard in the manor. There, all the disobedient male consorts abducted by the Grand Princess were imprisoned. Among them was my younger brother, Xing Yao. Xing Yao was born with rosy lips and white teeth. Anyone who saw him would praise him as a handsome young gentleman. When he and I were doing charity medical work in Yangzhou, he was abducted by the Grand Princess in just the time it took me to fetch some medicine. After that, there was no news of him at all. To find him, I went to the capital alone. In my past life, I had selfish motives when I saved Wei Liuli. I had hoped that, for the sake of the life-saving favor, he would rescue Xing Yao from the princess's manor. I thought, the Grand Princess was no good person. He, as a victim who had been abducted, should be a good person. But I misjudged. I, Xinghua, am the greatest female physician in the world. Yet I can never see through people's hearts. But it doesn't matter. Since being a good person couldn't get me what I wanted, then I, Xinghua, shall become a villain. The moment I stepped into Chenfang courtyard, I was stunned by the sight before me. Hundreds of jade-faced men, emaciated to the bone, huddled together, trembling. All of their hand and foot tendons had been severed, reducing them to cripples from then on. And because they refused to break their pride and serve the princess, they were locked in this Chenfang courtyard and tortured in every way imaginable. Though the princess was beautiful, she enjoyed humiliating beauties to preserve her eternal youth. She ordered virgin girls to be tortured and killed, bathing in their blood. This practice enraged everyone, and many reviled her for having a heart as venomous as a snake or scorpion. Many of the young lords in this Chenfang courtyard had their sisters fall victim to the princess's cruel hands. How could they ever submit to their enemy's skirt? I searched everywhere through the crowd, and finally spotted Xing Yao. 15. Year. Old Xing Yao was so thin, you could see his ribs. His clothes were worn and thin. When the wind blew, he hugged himself tight, trembling. I watched him crouching in a corner as a servant boy bullied him, untying his belt to piss on him. I kicked the servant boy's leg, snapping his leg bone clean in half. The servant boy glared at me furiously, but after seeing it was me, he forcibly swallowed his anger. I was now the princess's favorite. Who would dare offend me? The moment Xing Yao saw me, his eyes instantly turned red. He was about to call me sister, but I shook my head slightly. Me nails dug hard into my palms. I tried my best to keep my voice steady. Take him away. His blood is useful to the princess. Xing Yao was washed clean and moved into my courtyard. I used the excuse that Xing Yao's blood could help the princess stay forever young, but his blood was too potent. Only half a bowl was needed each month. Only when body and mind were content would the blood's effect be strongest. Thus, Xing Yao lived a comfortable life of luxury, and no one dared to mistreat him in the slightest. I brewed tonic medicine for Xing Yao every day, and Shen Yi got a bit jealous. Xinghua, you have me. Isn't that enough? Why do you still choose him? Shen Yi was a very stubborn person. I asked him to accompany me for life, and at first he resisted a little, but after seeing me prescribe medicine for the poor without charging consultation fees, he accepted. He said in this lifetime, he had set his heart on me. Shen Yi felt a bit wronged. Xinghua, you clearly know that every time we had sex, you used drugs on me. I am very clean, Xinghua. I am still a virgin. I have the highest martial arts, and now I even have the most beautiful face in the world. Xinghua, please don't look for others. Okay, Shen Yi, wearing Wei Li Yuli's face, had slightly reddened eyes, looking pitiable. His gaze was clear and bright, completely different from Wei Li Yuli's malice. Filled eyes. I smiled and patted his little head. Good boy. Don't worry. For now you are the only one I have. I soothed him. I knew that Shen Yi's current feelings for me were only because I had planted a love poison in him. Men's words. I never believed them. I only believed in the poison in my own hands. 7 days passed quickly. Everyone was waiting for the moment the Princess Royal would open her eyes, including Wei Li Yuli. I slowly removed the gauze for the Princess Royal, my gaze falling on Wei Li Yuli curled up outside the door. I smiled. The gauze slowly fell away. The Princess Royal gently opened her eyes, and then, I can see. She stood up excitedly, then rushed outside, joyfully taking in everything around her. As the Emperor's own sister, the Princess Royal's residence was naturally the most well-maintained. Tall pavilions and towers, precious flowers, small bridges over flowing water, all were of the finest quality. The Princess Royal laughed with delight, like a happy butterfly. Wei Li Yuli seized the opportunity to throw himself to the ground, desperately grabbing the Princess Royal's ankle. Your Highness, save me. I am the real Wei Li Yuli. But the Princess Royal kicked him away in disgust. Where did this ugly thing come from? Get lost. Wei Li Yuli was kicked in the shoulder, letting out a pained cry, but his hands didn't let go. Changel. It is me, Changel. Can you really not recognize me anymore? The Princess Royal had her thigh tightly hugged by Wei Li Yuli and couldn't shake him off no matter what. It was the servants who finally pulled Wei Li Yuli away, under Wei Li Yuli's despairing gaze. Shen Yi gently draped a cloak over the Princess Royal. Your Highness, the wind is strong. Don't catch a cold. The Princess Royal looked at Shen Yi's face, entranced. The #1 beautiful man. That was never an empty boast. As long as Shen Yi stood there, countless women would scramble to die for him, including the Grand Princess. I saw her smile shyly and gently pound Shen Yi's chest with her fist. Liuli, this princess still prefers you calling me Changel. As she spoke, her hand began drawing circles on Shen Yi's chest. Shen Yi's body stiffened slightly as he looked at me pleadingly for help. Soon he was pulled into the room by the Grand Princess. While no one was paying attention, I secretly slipped a packet of powder into his hand. Xingyao's body was recovering very well. After these days of recuperation, his sunken cheeks were gradually filling out. The sallow complexion on his face was also gradually fading, becoming rosy. Xingyao drank the tonic soup I had stewed, looking at me with some confusion. Sister, why not kill the Grand Princess right now? I shook my head. The time hasn't come yet. Although the Grand Princess was a malignant tumor, she was His Majesty's own sister, sharing deep affection with him. She couldn't be touched for now. To completely remove this tumor, we still needed to wait patiently for the right moment. Xingyao and I discussed how to kill the Grand Princess without a sound. When Shen Yi came back, he saw us with our heads together, shoulders touching, looking extremely intimate. Shen Yi was immediately annoyed. With a flick of his finger, he sliced off a strand of Xingyao's hair. Little boy toy, keep your paws to yourself. Having said that, he pushed Xingxiao aside and sat beside me as if it were only natural, asserting his claim. Let me tell you, I am the first man Xinghua ever acknowledged. You want to come from behind and overtake me? Impossible. You'll forever be stuck in second place. Got it. Shen Yi was usually a man of few words but ruthless actions, yet when he got jealous, he was like a 3-year-old kid. Xing Xiao deliberately teased him. I refuse. Whoever she likes is number one. As the two of them bickered, I simply kicked them both out. That evening, Xing Xiao came to complain, clutching his broken arm. Sis, that lunatic tried to kill me. My heart ached terribly, and in my fury, I slapped Shen Yi hard across the face. I told you, no one is allowed to touch him. Shen Yi's eyes instantly turned red. He covered his face, looking at me in disbelief. Xinghua, you really do love him that much. With that, he ran out into the pouring rain. I wanted to chase after him, but Xing Xiao stopped me. Sis, don't bother with that scheming little bitch. You have no idea. He acts all soft and fragile in front of you, but behind your back, he beats me like a punching bag. Shen Yi started giving me the cold shoulder. Of course, it was a one-sided cold war on his part. I was busy researching the antidote, no time to deal with his mood swings. All the gentlemen in Chenfang court had been given a colorless, odorless poison. Should any of them harbor murderous intent toward the princess, the poison would activate and kill them. Not just those in Chenfang court. All the servants in the entire princess manor have been poisoned with this drug. It seems the grand princess also knows. She can't command loyalty, so she can only use poison to control the servants. 1,000-mile dike collapses because of an anthole. Only by prying open a small hole in this princess manor will it come crashing down in the future. I was busy developing the antidote, and by the time Shen Yi came looking for me, 10 days had already passed. He looked somewhat dejected. Xinghua, do you really love him that much? I nodded perfunctorily. Shen Yi let out a heavy sigh, then slowly rested his head on my shoulder. Fine, Xinghua, I give up. I'll allow him to serve you together with me, but I must be the primary spouse, and he the concubine. All right. He looked at me pitifully, just like a big dog full of grievances. Me heart softened, and I gently said okay. Shen Yi visibly became happy, hugging my arm with a face full of smiles. Where was his initial cold and aloof demeanor now? So as not to arouse anyone's suspicion, I secretly put the antidote into all the wells in the manor at midnight. But just as I finished putting in the antidote, someone grabbed me by the throat. How dare you? You actually dare to poison the wells. It was the head matron of the Grand Princess Manor, also the Grand Princess's confidant. My neck was gripped tightly, and I couldn't utter a single word. The princess's residence is truly full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Even the head nanny knows martial arts. But the next moment, the head nanny's arm was chopped off with a single slash. Shen Yi shielded me behind him, pointing his sword at the nanny. The nanny was shocked. Young Master Wei never knew martial arts. Who exactly are you? Shen Yi wanted to kill her to silence her, but I stopped him. The head nanny hadn't completely lost her conscience. In my past life, when I was so hungry I gnawed on hay from the stable, she was the one who gave me a steamed bun. Back then, her eyes looking at me held compassion. Fate. It is all fate. Little girl, people like us who were born lowly. In this life, we're all just cheap lives. In your next life, be reborn into a better family. Right after I ate the steamed bun, I suddenly died for no apparent reason. No one could determine the cause of death. She helped set me free. If I remember correctly, the nanny had leverage held over her by the Grand Princess. Her daughter worked as a sweeping maid before His Majesty. She could only be loyal to the Grand Princess and serve as her lackey. But I knew, if she had a choice, she wouldn't aid the tyrant in their cruelty. Blood dripped, drop by drop. The nanny clutched her severed arm, her face full of malice. I handed her the wound medicine and extended an olive branch. Nanny, I can rescue Qingxi from the palace, and I can also cure everyone in the princess's residence of the poison. In exchange, will you help me? The nanny will be the most crucial piece on my chessboard. I need her. In just 3 days, the poison in everyone at the princess's residence was cured. The nanny believed in my abilities and was willing to be at my command. I moved among everyone without showing any emotion, slowly laying out my plan. The Grand Princess was so infatuated with Shen Yi that she wanted to dismiss all her male consorts for him. This day was a fine sunny day. I looked at the big, fluffy white clouds in the sky and squinted slightly. The young lords of Chenfang Court kowtowed to thank me. "If there is anywhere you need us, miss, we won't hesitate." This was exactly what I was waiting to hear from them. Within a day, all the male consorts who had been abducted into the princess's residence were released. Watching the vermilion gates of the princess's residence slowly close, I smiled slightly at the nanny. "Nanny, it is time to shut the door and beat the dog." I dragged the Grand Princess by her hair into the stable. She stared at me in panic and cursed at me furiously. "You wretched woman, how dare you be so disrespectful to me?" Shen Yi frowned and slapped her across the face. "Watch your mouth." The Grand Princess covered her face and stared at Shen Yi in disbelief. "Liuli, you betrayed me." Tears as big as beans fell from the corners of the Grand Princess's eyes. Looking at her pitiful appearance, I kindly explained. "Your Highness, your Luli has never betrayed you. Look, he cares about you so much." In the stable, Wei Liuli, whose 4 limbs had been broken, had cried until his eyes were red. He slowly crawled toward the Princess Royal, as if wanting to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes. But the Princess Royal kicked him away in horror. "Get away, you ugly freak! Don't touch me!" Wei Liuli was kicked so hard he spat out a mouthful of blood. He groped around helplessly and pathetically on the ground, searching for the Princess Royal's figure. "Changle, it is me. I am the real Wei Liuli." The Princess Royal looked at Wei Liuli, then at Shen Yi, and suddenly realized, "It is you, you bitch. You changed their faces. How impudent. I command you to swap them back immediately." I smiled slightly and slowly drew a dagger from my chest. "Princess, at a time like this, you should worry about yourself first." The gleaming dagger pressed against her cheek. She screamed in terror. "Where are the Golden Shadow Guards?" The Golden Shadow Guards were secret guards assigned to her by His Majesty, highly skilled in martial arts and under her command. Unfortunately, they had all been sent away by Shen Yi today. Now the Princess Royal was truly isolated and helpless. Finding her too noisy, I raised my hand and brought down the blade, cutting off her tongue in one stroke, just as she had done to me in my previous life. "Exk, so noisy." Mimicking her tone, I tossed the severed tongue lightly onto the ground. Ants quickly swarmed onto the severed tongue, densely packed. The Grand Princess wanted to scream, but could only make hoarse, gasping sounds. She would never be able to speak again for the rest of her life. I smiled as I wiped the blood off the dagger and nodded at the nanny. "It is time. Let's begin." In less than a quarter of an hour, I opened the door with an exhausted expression. It worked. Inside the room, the Grand Princess and Qingxi were lying quietly on the bed. The nanny looked at the 2 people before her in shock. "Miss Xinghua, will this really work?" I nodded. "Of course." I swapped the faces of the Grand Princess and Qingxi. From now on, the Grand Princess could only be a sweeping maid before the Emperor. She couldn't speak. Her hand tendons had been severed, so she couldn't write. She would never be able to reveal the truth for the rest of her life. As for Qingxi, she would live a smooth life, wearing the Grand Princess's face. The Grand Princesses knelt before me with a thud. "I, Qingxi, thank you for the grace of rebirth, miss." How could Qingxi not want to escape the palace? But she was insignificant and powerless, unable to change her own fate in this lifetime. The days of living in constant fear, dreading execution, were finally over. She had been the Grand Princess's personal servant since childhood and had attended her for many years. She was the one who knew them best. Having her impersonate the Grand Princess was naturally the most fitting choice. When the Grand Princess woke up and saw her own face in the mirror, she fainted straight away from rage. When she woke up again, she was already in the palace. The moment she opened her eyes, a maid handed her a broom and told her to sweep. She threw down the broom, wanting to say she was a princess. How could she do such menial work? But the moment she opened her mouth, only squeaky, hoarse sounds came out. It just so happened that His Majesty caught sight of this. Such a lazy palace maid. Drag her away and give her 30 strikes of the rod. The Grand Princess looked at her own brother, tears streaming down her face. She desperately wanted to tell him that she wasn't some palace maid. She was his own sister. But she had a mouth that couldn't speak, tears that couldn't tell her story. She could only cling desperately to His Majesty's trouser leg, babbling incoherently in her defense. But unfortunately, His Majesty couldn't understand a word. He simply kicked her away and furrowed his brows tightly. "Why haven't you dragged her away yet? Add 10 more strikes." The Grand Princess was dragged away by the palace servants, watching helplessly as His Majesty left. In this moment, she finally understood how Wei Li Yuli felt, back when she had mistaken Wei Li Yuli's identity. How desperate and helpless Wei Li Yuli must have felt inside. The Grand Princess wept bitterly with regret, yet could only be forced to accept the grinding torment of fate. She took 40 strikes and lay on the bed, barely alive. Truly, calling to heaven brought no answer. Crying to earth brought no response. The palace servants found her unlucky and simply threw her into a mass grave. And I picked her up and brought her back. I healed her ailments bit by bit. Then, I sent her into the residences of those young lords. Those lords she had once abducted, and the families of those women she had tortured to death. None of them would let her off easy. Qingxi is more suited to be the princess than her. At least, she has more conscience than her. Qingxi donated all the torture instruments in the princess's residence to the Ministry of Justice, and she ordered that servants could no longer be beaten or killed without reason. She had been a servant herself, so she naturally knew what it felt like to live in fear every day. She had already been caught in the rain, so she naturally wanted to hold up an umbrella for others. The once vicious and cruel princess suddenly put down her butcher's knife and devoted herself to kindness. This naturally caught the emperor's attention. So, the emperor held a palace banquet and invited the princess to attend. Qingxi was somewhat anxious, but I reassured her. "Don't be afraid. Your appearance, your voice, your habits, they're all exactly the same as the princess's. You won't be exposed. Trust me." As long as even His Majesty believed Qingxi, this final chess game would truly be secured. On the day of the palace banquet, all the officials were in high spirits. His Majesty smiled kindly, but his gaze upon Qingxi was like that of a venomous snake. In the middle of the banquet, His Majesty suddenly smashed his teacup without warning. "Guards, seize this impostor for me." Qingxi was immediately pinned to the ground. Her face showed some panic, but after seeing my reassuring gaze, she calmed down again. His Majesty's face was livid. My Changel would never have such a gentle disposition. "Speak, who are you? And where is my Changel?" I sneered inwardly. "Your Changel, she is suffering right now, of course. I heard that the Grand Princess used to love bathing in virgin blood the most, and now she gets her blood vessels cut open daily for bloodletting, living in unbearable misery." The emperor was furious, and all the ministers were shocked. The nanny hurriedly knelt down to beg for forgiveness. "You're reporting to your Majesty. The Grand Princess is indeed the Grand Princess. No one is impersonating her." At the same time, I and the servants in the mansion all knelt on the ground. We trembled, like leaves, scared, stiff, but unanimously refused to budge. The emperor then turned his gaze to Wei Li Yuli. "Wei Li Yuli, you speak. Wei Liuli immediately burst into tears, insisting that the emperor had been deceived, until the dying grand princess was carried in. The emperor pointed at the arrow scar on the grand princess's inner thigh, furious. "You can fool everyone, but you can't fool me. Changle took an arrow wound while saving me back then, and it never fully healed. Don't even think about deceiving me." Saying this, the emperor was about to have us all dragged away for execution. Qingxi pushed aside the imperial guards, ran a few steps to the emperor, and slapped him across the face. "You idiot. Can't you even recognize this old lady?" The emperor got slapped, and everyone thought he would fly into a rage. But he just stared blankly at Qingxi. Yes. This is exactly that feeling. Qingxi was a tough one in front of everyone. She lifted her skirt, pointed at the scar on her inner thigh, and cursed angrily. "Idiot, are you blind? Want to take a closer look?" His Majesty only glanced once before looking away. He didn't see clearly at all whether what was on Qingxi's inner thigh was really an arrow scar. I had long anticipated that His Majesty would make trouble, so I made a type of scar patch in advance. When she learned that the princess had an arrow scar on her leg, Qingxi took advantage of everyone's inattention to stick the scar patch on. If His Majesty had looked carefully, he would have noticed that the scar on Qingxi's leg wasn't an arrow wound at all. The matter was already settled. Qingxi was the real princess. His Majesty ordered that everyone's eyes be gouged out. Qingxi stopped him, saying it would be better to find them silver to fill the treasury. His Majesty didn't suspect anything, only remarking that Qingxi still loved money as always. As for the real princess, she was beaten with planks again, and her whereabouts became unknown. As for the family that reported them, they were all executed by His Majesty's order. This time, Qingxi didn't plead for mercy. Now, the last people in the world who knew the truth were also dead. 3 months later, the princess grew tired of the most beautiful man Wei Liuli and bestowed him upon a female physician in the manor. The following year at the imperial examinations, the princess took a liking to the top scholar. That person was the young scholar from Qingxi's hometown. On the day of Qingxi's grand wedding, I presented a 100-year-old ginseng as a congratulatory gift. Qingxi only handed me a wooden box. Inside were thick stacks of banknotes, land deeds, and property deeds. I didn't refuse and accepted them without hesitation. The day I left, the weather was still clear. Qingxi waved at me, telling me to come back and visit her often. I smiled and agreed. The carriage swayed and rattled all the way out of the capital. Shenyi and Xingyao squeezed me between them in the carriage, bickering non-stop. Shenyi glared at Xingyao. "Move over a bit. Don't sit so close. You haven't even married in yet. Have some self-respect, understand." Xingyao was truly exhausted from competing for favor. He helplessly raised his hands in surrender. "Brother, in-law, I am family." Shenyi froze in place. I rolled my eyes in annoyance. "Yes, we're siblings, biological ones." Shenyi looked at me, then at Xingyao, and only then realized we looked remarkably similar. He patted Xingyao, grinning widely with his teeth showing. "Little brother, it was all brother. In-law's fault before. Don't be mad." Xingyao crossed his arms. "So now, is brother, in-law willing to teach me martial arts?" Shenyi nodded furiously. The carriage traveled across plains, over mountains, through deserts. Every place we passed through, we would provide free medical consultations to the poor. And every bandit den we came across, Shenyi would fight 1 against 100, wiping them out completely. Folks in the Jianggu jokingly called us the 3 heroes. Life was carefree and leisurely, until a year later, Xingyao fell for a female general at the frontier, insisting on becoming a live-in son-in-law. Though the female general was a woman, her martial skills were superb, and she never made mistakes in military campaigns. Moreover, he was handsome and loved the people like his own children, earning great adoration from the commoners. As his older sister, what else could I say? Naturally, I packaged my little brother up nicely and sent him off to her. On the day Xingyao got married, I shed a few tears, then grabbed Shen Yi and fled. In the carriage, we embraced and kissed as if no one else existed. Shen Yi let out a contented sigh. Great, that little third wheel is finally gone. Come, Huar, let your husband give you another kiss. The carriage swayed and swayed, then swayed some more. In the heat of passion, I suddenly discovered that the love poison in Shen Yi's body had long since completely dissipated. I silently climbed up to his neck, intending to poison him again, but he caught my wrist. Xinghua, I've given you my body and I've given you my heart. Do you still not trust me? As he said this, he chuckled softly. Forgot to tell you, the very first day you poisoned me, I had already forced that poison out. I was shocked. Yet, he kissed my lips with deep affection. Xinghua, what will it take for you to truly believe that I really love you? My words were swallowed back into my belly. Amid the rising and falling, he said he truly loved me. 3 years later, the world underwent great upheaval. The current emperor was obsessed with immortality, capturing countless young boys and girls for alchemy. The Grand Princess tried desperately to dissuade him but failed, even incurring the emperor's wrath, and was confined to the Grand Princess's residence. That night, the princess committed suicide by self-immolation at her residence, using her death to offer a final plea. His Majesty wouldn't listen. Still obsessed with alchemy, the common people suffered unspeakably, barely able to survive. After the female general destroyed the enemy nation, she answered the people's will, crusaded against the foolish emperor, and won a great victory. The Zhuangyuan took the lead in supporting the female general as empress. Xingyao shamelessly kissed up and was made empress consort. On the day of the coronation ceremony, I watched Xingyao bashfully holding the female general's hand. Her little face flushed red. I really couldn't bear to look. 3 months later, the Zhuangyuan and the eldest princess divorced, and he married a new wife. They said the new wife was from his hometown, named Qingxi. On Qingxi's wedding day, I looked at her slightly bulging belly and gave her the best pregnancy, stabilizing medicine in the world. Qingxi was smiling and smiling, then started crying. Xinghua, when you first said you wanted peace under heaven and tranquility across the land, I didn't believe you. Now, I believe. I lifted my head proudly. Of course, this big sis is Xinghua after all. Later, the Empress issued a new decree. All beings under heaven, everyone is equal. The world belongs to everyone. Never again would there be oppression by power. Never again would there be bullying through influence. Whether peddlers and foot soldiers, or village women from the countryside, everyone could rewrite their own destiny. Side story. Actually, from the very beginning, I had it all planned out. I used the world as my chessboard to save countless people. In my past life, when I died in the stable, Nanny's words awakened me. Countless common people are all manipulated by so-called fate. Then what exactly is fate? The Princess Royal was born noble, so she can just slaughter innocents as a matter of course. Why are some people born as gods and Buddhas, while others are born as mere ants? If this world is unjust, then I'll overturn this world. The Princess Royal must be eliminated, the Emperor must be eliminated, and all the evil in this world must also be eliminated. I am just a lowly medicine woman. I just want to live well. I hope everyone in the world can live well. Swapping the faces of Wei Liyuli and Shen Yi was the first step. Shen Yi's martial arts are superb. He'll be the most useful blade by my side. I don't believe men's bullshit. I only believe in the poison in my hands. After punishing Wei Liyuli, I wasn't particularly happy. After tormenting the Princess Royal, I wasn't particularly joyful either. Vengeance was taken, but my heart feels empty. I am skilled in medicine, skilled in poison, so I can avenge myself. But what about those who can't do anything? Can they only wait helplessly for death? I think it shouldn't be like this. So, I swapped the faces of Qingxi and the Princess Royal, and helped Qingxi exchange letters with the young scholar from her hometown. At the same time, I won over those young lords who had been humiliated by the Princess Royal. Everyone is a piece on my chessboard, including Xingmiao and including myself. The meeting between Xingmiao and the female general was arranged by me. They fell in love, got married. Everything happened naturally. I helped the female general become emperor. I thought, if she couldn't be a good emperor, I would have Shen Yi kill her. But she did very well. Qingxi and her little Zhuangyuan also did very well. The world was finally at peace. I was very happy. But Shen Yi was not happy. He said I had schemed against everyone, including myself. My heart was like a thick city wall, as if no one could pry it open. But clearly, he had given me his body and soul. This isn't fair, not fair at all. I thought about it, and finally told him about the sufferings of my past life one by one. After Shen Yi finished listening, he held me and cried the whole night. That night, he rode at full speed, found the beggar's den in the capital, and beat the half-dead princess and Wei Li Yuli again. The princess and Wei Li Yuli were very pitiful now, their meridians completely severed, dressed in rags, starving, but no one saved them that winter. They were frozen to death alive in the heavy snow. The soldiers at the city gate shoveled them to the mass grave. After that, every year's heavy snow was pure in color. Shen Yi and I sat on the mountaintop, watching the lights of countless homes glowing in the distance, and raised our cups together in tacit understanding. And may the years to come always have days like today.